The fighting against Islamist militants in Iraq continues, despite not being on the front burner. With that as a backdrop, Iraq's Prime Minister is scheduled to meet with President Obama today. Likely discussion topics: how to defeat Islamic State and how the U.S. might aid in that effort. With more on the likely outcome of the meeting, we have U.S. Army Colonel, he's retired, Wes Martin. Thank you very much, Colonel Martin.
Thank you. I appreciate being here this morning.
So there's going to be a meeting, and I can imagine that there's going to be a lot discussed at that. What do you think is the likely outcome of that meeting?
What I suspect is going to happen is President Obama will offer financial support, air support to the Iraqi government. But the reality is he's going to also need to have to hold Prime Minister al-Abadi accountable, which is something he never did for Nouri al-Maliki. And he let Maliki really run rampant over the country.
Now, one of the things we've seen with the Iraqi military is they have had a lot of training and haven't really done very well in the battlefield. And part of that, I've got to believe, is because we're talking about street fighting, and street fighting is particularly hard and particularly dangerous.
It's dangerous. My first tour in Iraq, I was the anti-terrorism officer for the whole country. And we did have to do a lot of strategy. We did have to do a lot of work to understand it. But what the Iraqi military is really missing is not just the training, it's the spirit and the will. And we saw such a difference between the American warriors and the Iraqi military. They didn't have the will, and unfortunately what we're seeing is a lot of Shia militias allowed to go in, and where they clear the area out for ISIS, then they start in on the rampage and the genocide on the population. And that is stirring up even more.
Now, you have an illustrious military career. You have two Bronze Stars, and you went from private to colonel in what seems like a record time. I don't know if it is a record. How would you instill that fighting spirit, or how does the Prime Minister instill that fighting spirit in the troops?
Right now, what the Prime Minister is going to have to do, and it's going to be very difficult because there is massive Iranian interference and influence. General Soleimani, who's the commander of the Quds Force, he was running military operations until he finally went down to Yemen to start running those hostile operations against that government. Al-Abadi is going to have to start cleaning out his own administration. He's got the Bada Corps militias already controlling the military, and they also control the Ministry of Interior. He's got to thin it out. But at the same time, he's got to get the spirit into the forces that this is their country. He's got to bring the Sunnis and the Shias together. And I've seen it done. I've worked on it before. It can be done. But it can't be done with the Shias being allowed to continually attack the Sunnis, which they have been allowed to do throughout the administration of Nouri al-Maliki. And we saw it in Tikrit. Now we saw the setback in Ramadi, because villages are realizing ISIS is here killing us, and yet when the Shia militias come in, they'll kill us, because if we survive, then it must be because we cooperated with ISIS.
Colonel Martin, I can't remember a time, certainly within the last few decades, that the Middle East looked so volatile. Is there a time clock before it's basically unsolvable? What do you think?
We're getting very close to that time clock, and unfortunately both the Bush and the Obama administration has helped push that time clock further forward. We had no legal reason to go into Iraq, and when we went in, under the lies given to us by Ahmed Chalabi and reverse engineered intelligence, we went in thinking we'll just take Saddam out, we'll put democracy in place, and then everything will be fine. No, it won't. Because what we did is became a rallying call for people who may have just sat out and raised their families and worked their jobs. But instead, we totally destabilized the region. General Petraeus did successfully win the war by working with the Sunnis. Although General Petraeus won the war, Barack Obama has really lost the peace. And unless we bring Iran under control, because now they're stirring up in Iraq, in Lebanon, in Syria, in Yemen, and it's amazing that the Iranian government has pinned down all the Western powers that could make a positive difference. They pinned them down at one negotiating table talking about nuclear weapons negotiations. We're not going to see anything come out of this deal when it's over. Rouhani is playing a very smart game. We're afraid, as our nation, afraid of upsetting the Iranian government. So as a result, we won't go into conflict with them anywhere they're at right now. And it gives them the conventional warfare to go wherever they want.
Okay, well, that's a pretty bleak outlook. We thank you for your insight. Retired U.S. Army Colonel Wes Martin, we thank you for your time.